So 2019 has left us, it's now 2020, and I just wanted to quickly go back over some of the games that I played in 2019 in a really casual audio only sort of version. So there'll be footage in the background, but you don't need to watch that. This is sort of like just to throw your headphones in and listen to me ramble about some of the games that I played. This first video is going to be about Ori and the Blind Forest. It's a pretty short one, so let's jump straight into it. So, Ori and the Blind Forest. How good is this game? I know it came out in 2015, but it is part of the Xbox Game Pass, and I picked up Xbox Game Pass a while ago to play through the Outer Worlds, and I've been using the subscription service for the last couple of months and playing a few bits and pieces back and forth, and I saw that Ori and the Blind Forest was on there. And I was like, I've heard that's a really good game. That got a lot of coverage when it first came out. I'm going to give that a go. And you know what? It is a really, really, really good game. There is so much to like about this game. The art is amazing. The story is really charming. The gameplay is really tight and it feels really, really good. The world is really well realized. It's very interconnected. The length is perfect, almost. Like it's this complete and really well put together product. I would recommend that anybody played it. It's a really good example for a metroidvania platformer. It's a really good example for like a developer that might want to look into how to build one of these kind of metroidvania games, because it's a really good example of so many different things, like how the world needs to be interconnected to make it easier to get back and forth between things that you had to leave behind. Each individual area is interesting and different. Each individual ability builds on top of the previous one. It's really, really good. Let's go through a couple of the normal things that we would go through really quickly. I know this game came out a little while ago, but I just played it and it was awesome, so I wanted to talk about it. The story. The story is really, really charming, and it's presented in a few cutscenes and then mostly through what you do throughout the gameplay. So you go to an area and you try and do something within that area that relates to the story. The idea is that Ori is a spirit of light, and that the spirit tree who watches over the forest lost at one point. And that spirit was then found and taken in and raised by this other creature called Naru. While this was happening, and there's a really touching scene at the start where you see Ori and Naru bonding when they're young and that sort of stuff. And while this was happening, while they were growing up, the spirit tree was losing its grip on the forest, and the forest has turned to decay and is withering away. And so you need to go out into the forest and you need to basically restore the forest to its former glory. Steering away from some of the story beats so that you don't ruin it, so also that I don't ruin it, you do this by going to 3 areas and kind of restoring the 3 elements that the spirit tree used to control in order to keep its grip over the forest. And that's kind of where the direction for the gameplay gets its motivation from, because you've got to go to these 3 main places and do these 3 things. And so they're kind of based around elemental powers. And so there's a water one, and there's a wind one, and there's a fire one. The art in this game, which I'll talk about next, is awesome. It's so pretty. And there's all these little layers to it. If you just look at it, like it's one of those really well put together platformers that have gorgeous backgrounds, but the backgrounds have multiple layers to them. The lighting in the game is awesome. The animations are amazing. It's all really, really, really nice. It has a very distinct, unique look to it when they mix the art itself together with the lighting. So certain things glow and will bloom. Purple is a color that is used to like denote bad things from that you need to kill, or like poison and that sort of thing. It's really, really, really pretty. And it sounds amazing too. All of the sounds are really, really awesome. The music is amazing. Like, I cannot sing enough praise for this game, the way that it all comes together. It's such an awesome game. You have to play it. You have to play it. There's a bunch of different areas. They all have their own different like look and feel to them, but it's all very uniform across the entire game. What do you do in the game? The core loop, it's a platformer. It's a metroidvania platformer. So you have abilities that you pick up throughout the game, and then you basically do platforming challenges using these abilities. It's something that you would have played before, but it's really well done. It's the control is really, really tight, so moving Ori around is really good in almost every case. I'll talk about that in a second. You will make your way over to an area. There'll be a bunch of puzzles. You'll unlock an ability. That ability will then have challenges that are associated with the fact that you just unlocked it. And that ability will open up different areas of the map that you previously didn't have access to. Standard Metroidvania stuff. And you're doing all of this within this kind of story construct to be like, you need to collect this so that you can take it back to this other area so that you can get access to those elemental items that we were talking about before. There's some puzzles that you're going to bump into where you need to move things, or that you need to like do things within a certain amount of time. Well, I guess that would be a skill-based challenge more than a puzzle, but there's puzzles as well where you need to work something out. And then there's very occasionally there's a combat challenge. So there's lots of things that you kill throughout the gameplay. There's a very, very simple, like almost a melee attack system where you get close to a thing and you can zap it with lightning. And there's things that you kill throughout the entire game, but occasionally there'll be a combat challenge where there's like a mini boss, or there's a few things that you need to kill to be able to get to the next area as well. So it's a little bit of variation in the different types of challenges that you might have to overcome within the core loop. The gameplay itself feels really tight. It's a lot of the abilities that you pick up will have upgrades and bits and pieces through a skill tree that the game has. So you get essentially experience for, they call it spirit energy, I believe. It's experience points, though, that you collect through killing monsters and picking up spirit orbs in the world and that sort of thing. And you eventually will fill up like a spirit gauge, and that will give you one ability point, and you can spend that ability point in the skill tree. And the skill tree has like 3 different runs to it that all have different sorts of abilities. And there's a lot of cross-pollination between these 3, how would you say it? Like, I guess trees. They're not really trees because they're linear. It's you take the skill, you get the next one. You take that skill, you can get the next one, and there's 3 different just lines of skills. But there's quite a bit of cross between them, but also they have a little bit of their own sort of flavor to it. So there's one that has lots of map things, but it might also have an ability that is to do with combat. And there's one that has lots of combat things, but it might also have an ability that's to do with traversal. And then there's one that has lots of traversal things, but it might also have abilities from the other 2. So yeah, it's really interestingly well put together, and you have this sense of progression across the entire game because you're slowly working up these skill trees, and the skill trees might open up better opportunities because, for example, you get a dash ability. This ability you can get early on if you want to, but you can kind of pick when you want to get that ability because of its location on the map. And then one of the trees has an ability that lets you dash in the air. So previously when you get that ability, you can just dash if you're contacting the ground. And you can get an ability through the skill tree that lets you dash in the air, which will obviously open up so many more possibilities because now you've freed up that limitation on that ability. Another one is that you can jump 3 times. So you get a double jump ability in the game, which obviously opens up a lot of areas as a Metroidvania would, being able to jump twice as high. And then if you go far enough up the skill tree, there's a triple jump ability. So you can jump that 3rd time, which again would open up a lot more areas. The world is really, really well realized. It's super interconnected. So as a Metroidvania, it has lots of different areas that you need to kind of travel through, that you will bump into something that you can't get past yet. And then once you get the ability further down the track, you will be able to come back and you'll be able to get into that area. A lot of those areas hide secrets that are genuinely valuable. So there's kind of 3 or 4 different pickups that you can get. There's a giant spirit orb. There's a health pickup, an energy pickup, and an ability point pickup. The health and energy basically just help you with your normal everyday gameplay situations. An ability point is an ability point that goes towards things on the skill tree, and the spirit orb helps you level up quicker. And then quite often you will find when you go through these areas that you've come back to, they connect back up to another part of the map, which makes traversal between different areas of the map easier, which is an awesome thing that every Metroidvania thing should do, so that you don't have to backtrack across a whole heap of areas. The map, as you unlock more and more things, becomes more and more interconnected, allowing you to get back to areas easier than you previously were able to, but that means that you're not constantly replaying the same content, because to get from here to here, you have to constantly go through the same way. As the game progresses, the map opens up more and more, and it makes that trip easier and easier. Yeah, it's really awesome. If you haven't had a chance to play it, I would recommend it. If you have Xbox Game Pass, definitely give it a go. It's fairly short. It's a good length. It's probably like 10 hours maybe if you rush through it. If you did everything, it might be a little bit longer. So it's like a good, short, but well put together, polished game that's a very, very good example of something that of what it's trying to be, that Metroidvania platformer. And it's a good example if you're a developer and you're looking at doing this kind of thing, or even just to get some ideas about how you might build your world together and connect things and communicate different things within your world. It's a really, really good, I guess you would say case study. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And I had a lot of fun with it. And so we come to the end. There's going to be a few more of these on the channel if you wanted to listen to me talk about the other games that I played last year. But otherwise, Happy New Year. I hope you have a great 2020, and I will see you on the channel later this year.